a few weeks ago I was watching a Liz Chatterton video and she mentioned Jackman's Crystalline Watercolour. Now somehow I had completely not known anything about this product, and I was like, this is so frustrating, how did I miss these? Because I used to use brush over my backgrounds and I wanted something that was light fast, and here is a product I've been looking for. So I stopped Liz's video, went to Jackman's Art Materials, bought a set of 5, went back and finished watching Liz's video. And when this actual set arrived, I loved them so much. The same day I ordered some more colours, and I spent 2 weeks playing about with these. I really do love using them. And then at the weekend I was going to make my own little video, and I noticed Liz had put up another video about the Crystalline Watercolour, and she had the exact same set that I did. But I noticed that she had a slightly different result with one of the colours, so I thought, well, that's interesting. I'm going to have another experiment with that colour. And there's a few things I have noticed about them that is really interesting. Not bad, really just interesting results. So anyway, I think these are absolutely wonderful. Because I've previously worked in art and design, I love Lightfast products because you know that you're going to get the same result when you pick up a picture in 2 years' time from the day you made it. It's going to look the same, and that's really important to me. So I love the fact these mixes have been handmade, they've been carefully selected with really intense and vibrant pigments, and they're semi-transparent, and most importantly they are light fast. Now they come in a little 6-gram pot. You see, a really sweet, perfect size for testing. They have the information on here: permanence AAA, semi-transparent, and it lists the pigments. So this one has 2 pigments. I've got a couple that just have 1 pigment. Most of them have 2 or 3 pigments. Really pretty. Now this is set number 2 or volume number 2 with orange, orange grey, turquoise, shadow grey and blue grey. And then these ones I bought loose. We've got plum violet, grey violet, sap green, magenta and royal blue. Some of the colours come in sets and some of them are only available loose. So I think some of them are only available loose. And I've got another blue, single pigment, poppy red, rose, leaf green and olive green. But anyway, if you're interested, just go over to Jackman's Art Materials and have a look on there. Now, it's really interesting to look at these grains. It seems on some of them, maybe some of the grains are slightly larger, but that could be an optical illusion. Now Liz mentioned put a pin in the pot to turn this into a shaker pot, and then leave the pin in to keep the granules in when you're not using it. Lots of people do that. I personally don't, various reasons why. But I prefer to keep some old brushes. Any old brushes that have gone a little bit fluffy so that you can trap some grains. And I use different size brushes depending on what I'm doing. Just dip that into the pot and gently shake that over the paper. Now, if you're using dry paper, you can still move the grains. If you put too much in one space, you can move them with your brush. So there are actually 3 ways to use these. Now on the Jackman's video, they stretch the paper, which is great because some of the pigments do take a lot of water to disperse them and dissolve them. I don't always stretch my paper, it depends what I'm using it for. So you can stretch your paper and you can brush on water, or you can mist on water just with a little mister. Or you can use your paper dry and then you can mist. And you can mist lightly. I would say always start off lightly and watch the effects, watch the colours doing their magic and running and creating these beautiful unique patterns. And the other way you can do is to actually mix these colours into a paint. Now I've tried all different things. I think all ways are lovely, but I love the way the colours just run and the speckly effect you can get. So I've tested on 300 GSM watercolour paper hot press. I've also tested on a 425 GSM Blockingford cold press and a 250 GSM mixed media paper. I do prefer a cold press because you can see more texture. So this was my original little splodge chart that I did. So on the set of volume 2 you have the shadow grey, the blue grey, the orange grey, the orange and the turquoise. Then I've got the sap green, the plum violet, the grey violet and the magenta, which I bought loose. And I smooth that one out of the way for a minute. I probably just jogged my tripod. Now I went back and did lots of little tests because I use all the samples. I keep one page for a record and then I cut up the samples and use them in my journal or for little pictures. So with the turquoise, Liz said when she mixed the paint they looked very similar, but you can see for mine they look quite different. Lovely turquoise around the edge here. And what I've done here is I've misted once, twice and 3 times, and then I've mixed into a paint up here. And I've also lifted out with some kitchen paper. Now these were done on dry paper. Now with the shadow grey, I've noticed that at first I thought it didn't have so much of the magenta because it wasn't coming out. But when you add more water and you mist again and again, you can see the magenta. It's really pretty. And then even when you turn it into paint, you can still see the magenta in there. So I think sometimes you can't see the colours until you've added quite a lot of water, which is why it's good to use really good thick paper. Although I've had good results with all of the papers I've used. Now with my second set of colours I have the plum violet, and you can see how when you start to add the water you get this lovely movement, and I've used a brush to get various shades of paint. And here with the grey violet, I really love this, and I have lifted out here to get this lovely soft colour here. I love the way you see all the different colours, and what a beautiful grey. The sap green, I've just done a little wiggle of green in the middle here. It's sort of a grey green. And that is some speckles of my magenta, which accidentally went onto the wet paint. So do be careful if you're using more colours. It's usually best if you want separate areas to let one area dry. Magenta, the single pigment, I love this, it's so pretty. I've drawn out some lines from the little wet pigments, the little speckles I've lifted out. Very just so much fun using these. And now I'll show you some of the other colours which I have been working on. So the poppy red, I've used some scraps of paper. So I've used damp paper, wet paper, and then I've used dry paper, and you can see I've misted, and it's just a different effect, and then it's quite quickly I've managed to create the poppy red paint, which is really pretty. This was the single pigment blue and the magenta, and then I've got the royal blue and the rose, and I've let them mix in the middle. That's really pretty as well. And the olive green, and that's wet paper, and this was dry paper and misting. Love the way all the colours come out, really pretty. This is the grey violet from the set number 2. I was really experimenting with dry paper and wet paper and misting, different amounts of misting, creating the paint. And I've actually, with my kitchen paper, taken out most of the background colour so you can have a very light background, but these are just so beautiful. I really do love them. And then again I have got the leaf green, which is the damp paper and the dry paper, and something I'm not sure if we can see it on this one, but maybe better on the original one that I showed you. Let me just have a look. Now, something to be aware of, some of the pigments, especially the oranges and the reds, and even the blue here, if they are not dissolved, then I draw on the backgrounds when the papers are completely dry. I tend to do a lot of lifting out, so I've got a clean an even surface. But if you want to use the paper and you've got a lot of undissolved pigment, it is going to move if you draw on it. You can go back to it and you can lighten up these areas with a damp brush. But just be aware, if you do what I do, which is drawing on them, you need to make sure there's not a great amount of undissolved pigment. Now I have left quite a bit of pigment on here. This was the royal blue and the rose again. And I just love doing these effects because I've lifted out in places. You can just do so much with these, they're so creative. So all of these samples will be used for various things. Now I've just messed about there, lots of lifting out, different colours. Again here I've done some quite heavy backgrounds and I've done some lighter ones. I just wanted to really play with these colours, but these will not be wasted. They will all be utilised in my journal. You can actually see here, that shape reminded me of a jellyfish, and so I was going to do a jellyfish, but I haven't got very far. These are ideal for me, these light backgrounds. Nothing on here is going to run. I can completely draw on this with my waterproof pen. We've got little squiggles there I've taken out with a brush, and these little samples I've utilised a circle there from my imaginary flowers. I do lots of plants and flowers from life, but in my journal I like to doodle imaginary flowers, so these little samples will get stuck into my journal. I've also just done the pigments for you, but obviously you can go across to the Jackman's website, and there's the other set that I have, the volume 2. So I really love that these are so versatile that every time you use them you're going to get a different effect. Just experiment, see what method suits you best, and I think you can be very delicate or very bold, very colourful, and most importantly they're light fast.